My name is Mary Judd, and I'm with Evolve Law. And I wanted to start out by thanking our sponsor for tonight. Wonderful food over there. Everyone has to eat it. So our sponsor is Thomson Reuters. So thank you to Thomson Reuters. We have many wonderful relationships with the Thomson Reuters folks. And this concept for bridging the technology gap actually came out at a prep call for last year's Atlanta, the very first Evolve Law that we did. So Ed Soon from Thomson Reuters was like, what if we talked about the products in general, just to get attorneys interested in technology? So thanks to Ed, who couldn't be here today. But the other people that I'd like to thank are Jennifer Downs from Aggregate Law, and Cam, and Yuri and Mikhail from client side, and you're going to hear from some of them later. But they have put together the Legal Innovation Group here in Atlanta, and they're going to talk a little bit about that at the end. So we are going to start tonight. I'm just going to briefly tell you a little bit about Evolve Law. That's our favorite quote. So Evolve Law started now 3 years ago, informally, and about a year and a half formally. And our goal is to increase the adoption of technology within the legal industry, and also just foster this sense of community and that we're all in it together. So we do believe in change. I think you'll hear a lot about that this evening. If you are going to be at Legal Week, Legal Tech, as they've rebranded it for next week, we do have an event on Monday that has over 150 people now registered, so we're pretty excited about that. And we seem to be very West Coast, but we are going to be at the tech show. And if you are a legal tech company and you're interested in raising funds, we are doing our first ever Evolve Law Summit in New York City on April 4th. So you don't have to be an Evolve Law member to come to this event. And it's pretty exciting. There's new information on the website for that. Oops, that's not where I meant to go. So I'm going to now introduce Natalie Kelly from the State Bar of Georgia, who probably everyone here knows her better than I do. Natalie's going to come up and do what we call a Darwin talk. And so Natalie is the director of the Law Practice Management program at the bar, and she is a longtime certified consultant and knows about multiple legal software systems.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, I typically like a response. I'm from the South, deep South, and I really like the feedback. So tonight I have the very quick topic of legal technology in Georgia. In about 5 minutes, we're going to cover exactly what that means. As Mary introduced me, she told you that I work for the State Bar of Georgia. I've been there in July will be 22 years. And what the Law Practice Management program focuses on is management in the law firm, as well as the business side, and of course technology as an efficiency plays a very huge part. So I wanted to start out with some very, very important numbers and share with you some of the things that I think might be important in terms of Georgia lawyers. There are, as of January 3rd, over 38,000 lawyers in Georgia. We're a mandatory bar. That means that if you practice law in the state of Georgia, you have to be licensed with the state bar. And in looking at the number of lawyers that are there, I told you I've been there 20 some odd years, our program was developed to help mainly solo and small firms. And so there are now 4 people in my department. So myself and I have 3 staff people, and we help lawyers with their technology. And there is a lot of flub about whether or not state bars are focused on technology, if they help their members. We talk about the legal technology community, and maybe some of you want to pull me to the side and get my most intimate thoughts about where technology has gone in the last 20 years here in the Atlanta area. But there is a program that we've actually embraced, and the State Bar only has 2 benefits for all of the members in Georgia. One happens to be a recommended broker of insurance services, and the other is a company called FastCase, so all lawyers can get free legal research. So it's not that there's a blind eye there. And if you said, do lawyers in Georgia use technology, then the answer is yeah. Because even the oldest of lawyers who don't check email, 99% of them most likely Skype with your grandkids or they have a smartphone. So everybody uses technology. It's this gap that we need to focus on. And I think right now there are a lot of what I'm going to call them scare tactics. You're going to say it's my business, it's what we do, it's how we move the profession forward. How do we do that? What's out there? There are all these big, bad, scary things for lawyers. We got to worry about the future. We got to worry about if I'm a lawyer or I'm a law firm, I'm going to be displaced. There are robots that are going to take my job. And if I do that, what will I do? What will I have? What's going to happen to this law firm? And so I'm seeing a lot of succession planning programs put in place. There is a lot of turnover or transitioning happening right now. So whether it's baby boomers going out now outside of the profession, that's happening. You say, well, there are not a lot of lawyers anymore because law schools aren't bringing them in. We don't have great numbers of lawyers enrolling in law school right now. And not only that, there's all this stuff that's happening in my practice where if I'm a litigator, I've got all of these things to be worried about. Like there's this thing called e-discovery now and all that data that happens. I've got to worry about what I'm going to do with it. How do I manage it? How do I get through that? How do I sift through all of that stuff? And not only that, they say that this data that I'm taking in, people can get into it and read it and see it. And then that harms me and my job. So what about that? And then my email that I look at, that too becomes a big problem because not only are my eyes on it, but apparently somebody else's too. And you would be surprised at the number of calls we get at the State Bar because they want to know, what's Bitcoin? How do I get that so I can get my data back? Oh, no, so anyway, and it happens, it's true. So there are a lot of technology-related services that the bar happens to provide. And it's not just that bar associations as regulatory bodies are often on the opposite side, meaning that they don't want you to do anything, they don't want you to innovate, they don't like the Avos and all of the other companies that are out there and the Legal Zooms. It's not that necessarily. There are a lot of technology-related services that have happened. One of the first things that we did in the State Bar of Georgia, in fact, was help a lawyer use TurboTax in a very disk form back in 1995. And so that happens to be the basis for what's there. But there's a lot to overcome. There's that big gap that really is why all of you are in this room. So we want to start talking about what are some of the other things that bar associations or groups can do to kind of help. So the discount programs that we have for members, we have our law practice management page, all of those things are in place. But interestingly enough, if you were to say, well, what did you really do? Boots on ground. My program has actually gone into law firms to help train on technology products, do things like that. And we track all of our numbers of everything that we've done. The management side, where we audit a firm, only 37% of what we've done has focused on the management of the firm, looking at the business side of it, saying whether or not the staffing ratios are correct. But then everything else, 63% of what we've done, we've gone on site to help a firm, whether it's implement a practice manager, work through their time and billing and accounting software. It's been technology focused. So those 1,246 visits into a law firm kind of really point to the fact that there is a gap and it needs to be filled. And me and my 4 people can't reach those 30,000+ lawyers that are out there. We average 54 consultations a year since the beginning of our program. And again, a vast majority focus on technology. And there are different little trends that you can track, right after 2000, it was the Y2K bug. And yes, we needed to come in and show people about practice management. And then there was the boom or the dip in the economy, and then there were a lot of changes there. So we can look at these numbers and sort of indice them, but again, you're talking about where do we get this information? How do we help members? How do we bridge this gap? So at least from our bar perspective, we tried to tie into what's going on at the national level. So some of you in this room are not from here, you're from around the country, and we love that. We want more of you to be a part of this. But we've been tied into the ABA Tech scene. I was chair in 2014 on the national level. I sit on the Legal Technology Resource Center board. We want to have this conversation continue. We want to talk about what are the other things that you can do. So Georgia lawyers, yes, you have the benefit of coming and sitting down and talking to me about what I've seen over the past 20 years. We have CLE programs that we can develop. We can do things to kind of energize ourselves. We can do things so that we can evolve, you like that word? We can evolve and we can grow. And so keep in mind that the state bar and the legal technology in Georgia is a very big space. But what do lawyers have to do to overcome some of these challenges? What's going to motivate them? What has to happen? And quite frankly, I think that they just need to keep swimming. You just keep swimming, just keep swimming. It can be scary, but if we continue to move, we continue to push forward, we're going to come out of this just fine.
Okay, so now what we're going to do next is we are going to have 3 different presentations on 3 different types of technology. But it's not going to be, they're not 5 minutes each, but it's going to be interactive.
So I'm Jennifer Downs, and I live here in Atlanta. I have a business called Aggregate Law. I'm not a lawyer. That's my disclaimer before I go any further. Yeah. It depends on your point of view. But I am married to a lawyer, and that's my trophy lawyer there in the second row. So, you know, I have some, you know, I tell people all the time, I answered his phones for a little while when he first started his firm, so I have a little legal experience, I like to think. But, so I'm going to talk today about using social media and CRM for marketing. So, let's see. I want to get this out of the way first. I'm not a social media expert. In fact, there's probably plenty of you in this room that may know more about it than I do. But what I know is what I've had to learn, and it's been hard won. Because I wasn't an early adopter of this. I'm not a millennial. This does not come naturally to me, and so I've had to learn it as I've started businesses, and as my husband's had a law firm, and as we started our other business. So these lessons are just ones I'm going to share with you from what I know, and I want this to be interactive. If you know something more than I do, please join in. So the first question I think you need to ask when you start a social media campaign is why? Why are you doing it? You know, you need to have a reason, you need to have a purpose. And so for me, and I think for most people, it's about connection. It's about connecting with someone that you can't connect with in physical space. And I think, you know, I often say to people, or I often say to my husband, you know, it's a big deal to hire a lawyer. It's not an easy decision. You don't really want to have to hire a lawyer, right? Like, that's not the position you want to be in. But when you're in that position, you want to be able to trust that person. And you want to feel good about that decision. I can't tell you how many people ask me on a weekly basis, because I'm married to a lawyer, how do I know who to hire? How do I know who to trust? So for me, the social media for attorneys is about making that connection and building the trust. It's about letting people find out a little bit more about you before they hire you. So it's about developing a relationship or building a community online. And so I think the first question you have to ask yourself, or the first question I always ask myself is like, do I know who I am? Do I know what I need to put out there? Who am I? Who am I trying to be? So, I mean, obviously you need to know what kind of law you practice, but I think the question's a little bit deeper. You know, it's who's my ideal client? Not just like, who's my general client, or who will I take if times are hard, but who's my ideal client, and what do I want my practice to really look like, and how do I present that? And then you got to be authentic. Relationships require authenticity. So you got to tell people who you are, and that's what builds trust. And then trust is going to build business, ultimately. At least that's the goal. So when I'm presented, I guess, with all of these options for social media, I feel like this lady. I think, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming. Where do I start? Which place first? What do I do? Like, how do you even begin? And so, you know, you could say, well, I won't do any of it, but what I want to talk through, like, just briefly is maybe some of the platforms you might want to try, why those are the ones to choose, and maybe how you can stop being quite so afraid of all these icons or logos. So I think the question to ask about which platform to use is, where's your audience? Who's your audience? Do I know my audience? So that's that question that follows, do I know who I am? Now, who am I looking for? So it's, what type of law do I practice? And where are other lawyers that are practicing that kind of law? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Twitter? You know, because if I want to be putting content out there, and also engaging with other people's content, I need to know where the people I want to be in conversation with are, what platform they're on. And then who's your client? Where are they on social media? And a lot of that might be age. You know, how old is your client? That's going to determine a lot of where they are. I've learned that I'm on the older platforms, you know, that's just how it is. So I would say the first one we want to talk about is Facebook. I was reading statistics as I was kind of looking into doing this, and it's 79% of adult internet users are on Facebook. I mean, that's an amazing number. I mean, none of the other platforms even touch it. So obviously people are on Facebook, but how do you want to be on Facebook? You know, if you're going to be on Facebook, it can really help you as far as like search engine optimization. If your website's not as optimized, people can find you with your Facebook profile. I find people like that all the time. I see their Facebook profile well before I see their website. That's something they should probably address. However, it's the truth. But what if you're on there, you need to engage. Ask your clients to leave reviews. You know, put some information out there that's useful for them. But be active. You know, don't just set up your profile and then, you know, be a ghost. Like the last post was 3 years ago, because that you don't look alive there. Another platform, LinkedIn. So this is, you know, the professional network, right? I think this one is a lot less usership. I think it was like 29%, but it's still the next up. You know, it's like Facebook, then LinkedIn. These are the two big ones that everyone's on. So 29% of adult internet users are on LinkedIn. So likely your clients are on LinkedIn, and you can find strategic connections on LinkedIn. You can really like learn to work this system. And there's more information than you can even imagine. I mean, you can Google, how can I find my people on LinkedIn, and like article after article will pop up. So it's not like the information isn't out there. So once you decide to do this, you can figure out how to make this work for you. And then the third one I was going to highlight, so Facebook, LinkedIn, next up is Twitter. So Twitter, you've got about like 24% of people using. And a lot of lawyers are on Twitter, including Kanye Westlaw, who laws so hard. Hashtag law so hard. So, you know, I'm just making a suggestion that you follow this guy, because it's pretty good. But, okay, not a real lawyer, but there are a lot of real lawyers on Twitter. And let me back up and say,
He might be, you don't know.
I mean, he could be a real lawyer. I don't think so. What did he post? We'll see. But Facebook is going to be your slightly older users, LinkedIn as well, and then Twitter is going to be younger users, but that doesn't mean the older users aren't there. It's just not the preferred platform. So looking at age-wise. I know for in our use, especially for my business, not the law firm that my husband has, but in our business, we found a lot of engagement on Twitter. Twitter's been a place where there's a lot of lawyers, and I was very surprised by that. So engagement and content. You want to give your clients what they need, what they're looking for, and meet them where they are. So if there's some this is another thing I'm always trying to remind lawyers, especially my husband, is that you have to meet your client where they are. They don't always have the information that you think that they do. You're used to lawyering, right? You do it every day. You law so hard. But people hiring a lawyer, they don't have any idea what's going on. They don't understand the billing. They don't understand how, you know, the whole thing is a mystery to them, and it's nerve-wracking. So my suggestion is, you know, use social media as a way to kind of give them the information they want. There is a lot, I think you know there's a lot of frequently asked questions. There's the questions you get over and over again. Answer them. Put them on the social media platforms. Then when people find you, they can, you know, they find your website. They look up your Facebook page. They find your Twitter account. They get all those little pieces and answers their questions, and it, you know, helps them trust you and want to hire you. So I'm going to address Marnie the dog first, and then I'll hit the 80-20 rule. This is Marnie the dog, and I put her up here because she has 117,000 Twitter followers, and she doesn't, you know, like, she has that many Twitter followers because she's given the people what they want. She's giving her followers the content they need. So she's got a book deal. I mean, like, and honestly, every picture looks about the same. I mean, she's hilarious. But the point is that she knows her audience, right? Like, Marnie's owner knows her audience. Marnie's owner dresses her up and posts her every day, and people love it. So it's about knowing your audience. And in the 80-20 rule, I've heard it a couple different ways. But the way I'll say it for tonight is, you need to spend about 80% of your content on giving your client what they want, what they need, and what they want to hear. And then you can spend about 20% of that time selling your business. So you build that trust with giving them the things they need, that's that are going to help them, they're going to help them in what they need to understand about their case or whatever, and then 20% of the time you can sell your services. And I think, last but not least, it's a long game. You know, you can't expect things to happen overnight. It's about building, you know, any kind of relationship kind of takes time. It's an arc. You need to give any strategy, you know, at least 3 months, maybe even 6. So if you start, you know, going all in on Twitter, give it a while, you know, build those followers, follow people, engage with other people, repost content, and find other people, find strategic alliances on all of these platforms. And then you can use a tool like Hootsuite, which makes it a lot easier. So Hootsuite is a social media dashboard where you can post to several different platforms at once. And you can schedule your postings, you can find analytics on which postings, you know, what your posting is doing. Is it doing better on Facebook, or is it doing better on LinkedIn, or is it doing better on Twitter? So those are all good tools. And then the other piece that I was going to talk briefly about is customer relationship management software. So again, this is about relationships. Like, we're talking about how to build relationships with clients. So there are a lot of CRMs, and there are many that don't have, you know, that are not specific to the legal field, and there's plenty that are specific for lawyers. So how would you use one? You use one to develop business, to follow up on leads, to help you engage more personally with your clients, and to track that engagement with your clients, to understand when it's all happened and it is happening, and especially if you have like a staff, you know, you can kind of keep it all together and share information. So these are some of the legal specific CRMs. There's a lot of them now. So before you would want to get a software like this, you would want to decide what your goals are. I mean, much like before you would launch a social media campaign. Like, what do I need from this? What am I looking for? And then after you establish some goals and understand what you want out of the situation, you would want to look at the interface. I mean, I always think that that's probably one of the most important things about choosing any kind of technology. Do I understand it? Can I work with it? Can my staff work with it? Or is it going to be, you know, difficult and troublesome at every turn? Does it work with software I already use? There's plenty that does, that integrates with other software you might be using. And then, of course, there's price. And then I've got an example of, like, my case has an integration with customer relationship management. So that's the spiel. Anybody, you wanna engage now? Anyone?
So how do you help? You help build these for firms?
This is not actually my business. This is just something I'm sharing for all of our edification tonight. No, these are just the lessons I've learned in promoting my own business and marketing my own businesses. Yeah. Yes.
Maybe you can ask how many people use like practice management, CRM, social media.
Yeah. So first, let's start with social media. How many of, not in your personal life, how many of you use it in your professional life? Yeah. See, that's about half the crowd. This would be an interesting question to me. Like, what keeps you from doing it? Do you feel like that lady with all the icons coming at you? Yeah.
I don't see a big ROI at this time for doing it, because I think that my business would come from a trusted referral source. And maybe I could learn to leverage my social media accounts as that trusted referral source. Do you see the social media account as something that builds trust? The fact that I do have an active Facebook page?
I think, you know, this is something I actually meant to mention earlier on. I mean, for me, it's about kind of looking alive. It's like I expect anyone I look up, you know, online for really any business now to be active, you know, to have something going on. Maybe not on like every platform, but I would expect to find them somewhere. And if I don't, you know, like sometimes I have been like a little bit shocked, like you find that Facebook page that's like maybe there, but there hasn't been a post in a couple years, so you don't know. Like, is that restaurant still open? Is that, you know, I don't know what's happening. And so, I mean, I really did resist this for a long time. And I don't know that it's ever like super direct, you know, the return on the investment. So I think it's sort of like one of those like sort of ancillary things you do just to kind of look active and alive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Just on the topic, there is a company called Scroll Digital that is focused on managing social media.
That's right.
For a solo and small firm attorney.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up. I actually really meant to mention them. I had actually reached out to her and asked her to come tonight. She couldn't make it.
Marlette.
Marlette, that's right. I had reached out to Marlette and she just couldn't make it tonight, but I heard her speak at an Evolve Law event and she gave a great talk on this as well.
You want to give some more details about Scroll Digital?
I don't have a lot of details about Scroll Digital. Mary might.
Please.
So the way to find out about any of the Evolve Law, and it's free, is you just go to evolvelawnow.com and you go into, we have a legal tech toolkit, and every one of our members has a listing, and Scroll's a member, so they have all their information and demo videos. And another company you can look up is 1-400. They help lawyers with their websites, and Alan Rodriguez, who runs that, they're out of Los Angeles, but he'll actually do a calculation or attempt to do an ROI type calculation to the question that was. So yeah, so what we're going to do is, because I told Jennifer I'd give her a high sign in 12 minutes, and then I totally forgot. I got engrossed in the whole thing and taking notes. So Matt St. John is here from Thomson Reuters, and he's going to come on up. And then after everyone finishes, we'll do a little bit of questions and before my job.
Hey guys, I'm Matt St. John. I am a recovering attorney. I'm not lucky enough to say I'm not. So I've been with Thomson Reuters for 14 years. I travel the country and talk about technology on behalf of Thomson Reuters. And I manage a group of e-discovery nerds that are really the kind of people sometimes that you don't necessarily want to get in front of at a lunch table because they talk about predictive coding and things like that. A lot of things that are kind of dry topics, but nonetheless. I'm going to be talking to you guys about some studies that we've done at Thomson Reuters with smaller law firms. And when we say small law firms, we mean attorneys in the 29 or less attorneys in a firm space, and talk to you about some of the technology gaps that are going on there right now. And then suggest thinking about some integrated solutions. I mean, I say integrated solutions, I mean software or technology that speaks to each other. I remember when I worked at the Department of Justice, we were really good at creating clown cars out of software. When I say that, I mean we would have pieces of software that wouldn't speak to each other, and it felt like you had like a with an engine out of a Ford, and it just felt like nothing worked, and it just kind of banged together. Maybe there's some folks here in this room that have that feeling in the office where you launch one piece of software and all of a sudden your billing crashes or something like that. And that's happening all across. If you're feeling that pressure or if you're feeling that in your firm, there's ways to get around that. And Jennifer talked about integrating or about software that works together. I'm not here to suggest that our software is the only thing in the whole world that will do this type of thing, matter management or practice management. There are plenty of others, as you saw on the screen. Well, let me address this study that we did recently. This was last April in 2016. We had 29 or less attorney firms in, and we asked them a whole bunch of different questions. But the first thing we asked them was, how do you define law firm success? And 88% of them said it's all about client satisfaction, right? So what does that mean? That means happy clients bring you more clients, is what they were pretty much trying to say to us, right? They said they gave us 7 types of challenges kind of that emerged from law firms or from these attorneys. And 50% of those folks that we asked what those problems were actually addressed them. So on the business side of all of this, you guys, if you see that 50% of the legal community is not addressing some sort of concern in their business, is that not a space for you to carve out and to grow your own business? right? Because there is a business side to all of this. I know that a lot of us went to law school for very noble reasons, that you're going to help and do all these sorts of things, but at the end of the day, you still have to keep the lights on to help people. Isn't that right? Right. So, these were the results of at least the law firm success defined. Client satisfaction came out on top, repeat business was another, overall profits, work-life balance, revenues, profit per partner. There probably weren't that many partners in the room because that's awfully low. I don't care about those guys, I just care about me. Then when we got to those challenges, we asked ourselves, okay, well, what kind of challenges are we seeing most in these law firms? They said, acquiring new business, 78% said that. 69% said they spend too much time on admin tasks. Anybody in this room feel like they spend too much time on admin tasks? Yes, absolutely. It's like, I didn't go to law school to sit there and create binders all day, right, for trial, for those of you that are litigators. 63% said increase in complexity of technology. That's stuff like, what do I do when I get this stupid little thumb drive that's full of 500,000 emails that I have to get through? That's a big problem in a lot of firms right now. 62% said cost control and expense growth. Another 62, clients demanding more for less, or rate pressure. We're starting to see a lot more in small law firms, fixed rates. Right? We're starting to see, hey, $250 for a divorce kind of stuff. Frustrating as it is, that's what's happening, and that's the move towards these fixed rates. Keeping up with legal changes in the market, 56%. Have a hard time with that, especially with regulatory changes happening all the time. Lack of internal efficiency, 54%. I have a feeling that's actually probably higher than that, but succession planning, 47%, and then information overload from growth of legal documents. Oh, this last one is always really interesting to me. Did you guys know that the average document in a firm is copied 17 times? In paper, because we love paper. Now we transfer that over to technology. And I'll tell you, as somebody that deals a lot with my team and migrating data for law firms and helping them adopt technology in their firms, a lot of law firms have the same mentality about technology as they do paper. And here's what I mean about that. They'll take every single email that they have ever gotten in the last 10 years, and that has to go on their client management software. That has to somehow be linked. So they'll say, the same as they would with paper, right? I've got to take all of these file cabinets, I've got to keep all of these bankers boxes. They do the same thing with data, but don't call the data. So one of the things I was thinking about, what do I really want to impress upon people during all of this, is cull your data just like you would documents. Because it doesn't, just because you can't touch it, doesn't mean that it shouldn't also be purged. So one of the biggest barriers to technology, at least in practice management software, is that migration of data for law firms. Because they sit there and they go, well, how am I going to get all my contacts in Clio? How am I going to get all my contacts in ARPA, Firm Central? And then it becomes totally overwhelming. Price at that point means nothing. It's all about how the heck do I get the data in there? Heck, you guys, when was the last time you got a new phone and had to put all your contacts in your phone? Luckily, somebody invented that glorious machine that can transfer them all for you. Well, boy, most lawyers would probably still have a flip phone if they didn't have that machine, right? So I guess what I'm saying to you is yeah, we can all, there's a bunch of early adopters here in the room, but that's the other piece to technology, or adopting technology, and especially in practice management, is think about the migration of the data and what that's going to take. It may be cheap up front, but how do you get it in the door? Right? Okay. When we ask those people, okay, great, so you have those challenges, how many of you are doing something about it? This is the opportunity here, folks. This is an opportunity for early adopters here in the room to stake out a claim. This little thing don't work. That's not going to work on that screen. Look, if 63% of people just live with the fact that they have that challenge of acquiring new business, don't do anything about it. Don't get involved in marketing for their firm. They just figure, well, I just got to get more friends. I don't know. Okay? Maybe I'll make my rates cheaper and I'll get more clients. Spending too much time on, this is a big one, right? 81% of people that say they spend too much time on administrative tasks don't do anything about it. They're like, I went to a law firm in South Carolina, I won't even say the city. I sat across the desk from a managing partner who told me, around here we bank on inefficiency. Scary, right? That was prior to 2008. But that's not the case anymore. I'm sure you guys can feel it in the legal community, you can feel those pressures coming. Banking on inefficiency doesn't cut it anymore because somebody will come in that's hungrier, that has a better marketing program, that is engaged in thought leadership online, in Twitter or Facebook. That stuff doesn't work anymore. 54% just live with increasing complexity of technology. They don't go to things like this. They don't network. They don't teach themselves how to move into the next space or the next, I don't know, how to evolve with the profession. Lack of internal efficiency, I think, kind of goes with the admin tasks kind of stuff, but 89% just live with the problem. 73% just live with the fact that documents are becoming overloaded. Most folks that I go to and I speak about e-discovery, I talk about the ability to go through documents in seconds, you know, with predictive coding and things like that in e-discovery. Most folks, they just print it out, you guys. And at 3 cents a page, you multiply 3 cents a page towards the average banker's box of documents. Every banker's box will cost you $1,250 to photocopy. Tack that onto a case over and over and over. Now you're talking about banking on inefficiency. There you go. And then that gets added. It's just, it's ridiculous. There's definitely better ways to handle this. Okay. So when we had all these different challenges, they all came down to 3 different chunks we found. And it was client challenges, technology challenges, and then business challenges, right? Imagine if you had your firm here with firm success over time. And that dotted line there is the status quo. It's just where you're cruising and where everything is just kind of hunky-dory. Client pressures are now pushing down on firms so hard since 2008 that we've been told, especially during our study, that 68% of clients are expecting more for less. Do you guys get that feeling? Where they expect more phone calls, more emails, and more documents, right? How about the old, send you an email and then they call right after the email and then they want a copy of the documents and then, can you send a copy to this person or whatever. 68% more for less. Then we have technology challenges and the pressure is pushing down on that. Well, only 1/3 of our profession have actually adopted some sort of cloud computing. Okay? So, kind of frustrating there. Another pressure, downward pressure. Then we have the business pressures, where the attorneys in these small law firms or in smaller law firms say they spend 40% of their time not practicing law. So a non-billable activity. Is that number too low? Some people are probably like, yeah, that's a little too low. It's probably more like 60. Right? Frustrating. So what happens? The average firm, they peak out at some point. And then what do? This dotted line represents their success going down, right? The first reaction for most people is, cut costs. I'm going to cut. And you start cutting your way to the point where you don't have the resources to continue. And then your work product starts to suffer. Then what happens? Client success rates go down. Client satisfaction goes down. Then what happens? No more referrals. Before you know it, something like this just starts getting into a danger zone. But if you start leveraging tools, not only ours, but then there's other ones out there. I'm not going to hide water, but if you leverage other efficiency tools, like, have you thought about automating your intake forms? Have you thought about automating your other forms if you're a transactional attorney? Or doing things like having electronic trial binders as opposed to photocopying banker's box after banker's box of documents. They're all out there. When you do that, you add those efficiency tools. Oh, another efficiency tool, big one. using what's the word? Secure mailboxes for your clients. Some folks have used Dropbox in the past. When they talk about using Dropbox, I'm here to say, well, just do your homework on the subscriber agreement of every piece of software you ever buy. Let's just put it that way, because this is being recorded. so just do your homework, read those subscriber agreements, know what happens to your data, especially when we're in practice management, we're going through, you're uploading clients' information, where are the servers located? Because I can tell you, and those of you that are nerdy like me about privacy, there's very different protections between the US and the EU when it comes to data. Right? Second, I want to know what happens when we break up with practice management software. What happens? Hey, you know what? I don't like your billing. That never happens at Thomson Reuters. No one ever says that. No one's ever mad at us about a book that auto-shipped. But what happens when we break up? Are you going to shut me off right when I cancel the contract? There are folks out there that will do that. Do you give me a grace period? What's the recovery process that happens? What's the subpoena process that happens? Right? I mean, if somebody wants, if the DOJ comes and says, hey, we want all of the information on this client that you have, what's the Thomson Reuters policy? This is all information that we should be asking you. When you leverage things like an integrated solution, I mean, like I said before, a piece of software, a piece of, whether it be software as a service in the cloud, or it's something that's actually installed, it should be something that is streamlined, that also lowers the learning curve for everybody in the firm. Jennifer talked about, yeah, when you buy a piece of software, is everybody in the firm going to be able to use it? Right? There's going to be somebody that doesn't want to use that billing software on their phone. But is there a way around that? So you want to make sure that it has a smaller learning curve or a shorter learning curve as well. And as she mentioned earlier, about user interfaces are extremely important as well. Okay. When we get to that, we get out of the cost-cutting idea, but instead of leveraging client success, like what I suggested earlier is the #1 firm indicator of success, client happiness and client success, then we start getting into a growth curve as opposed to the cost cutting. So your checklist, when we break this down into those 3 buckets that I had before of increasing client expectations, right? Challenging and acquiring new client business, that comes from great service. Great service provided by you, which means faster service, which means things like using a piece of software that allows your clients to see the documents that you've drafted for them in a secure environment. So for example, in one of our pieces of software, you take your document, you upload it into a window, they can go in and they can view that document live in the window, and you can get notification as to when they've seen it and when they accessed it. So no more of this stuff, well, you guys ever get this in the email, it's like, oh, I never got that. Oh, yeah, okay, sure. It's like getting that good little certified mail, stamped receipt that you guys, yes, all right, perfect. Same idea. When we're talking about clients demanding more for less or rate pressure, it has to be faster now, right? It feels like these days, when you get that phone call, then you get the email, then somebody's texting you or somebody, it's amazing how quickly these responses have to happen now. So having a piece of software, having a practice management tool that allows you to be closer to your clients to provide greater customer service will increase that client satisfaction and those referrals, okay? When we're talking about making technology decisions, you have to think about what kind of administrative tasks can I streamline. I suggested things like intakes. I suggested things like our trial binders. I think about that because I used to have trial binders that were like this. Maybe you guys have with the dividers all over the place. They're just ridiculous. There's got to be a better way to do it. And then you got to search them, right? Increasing complexity of technology, you should have an integrated system that winds up all working together. It's one thing to be able to create a piece of, to create work product, it's another thing to find it later. So when you have a practice management piece of software, it should have great searching algorithms inside of it to be able to locate those documents later, right? Because the efficiency and the increase or the faster closing and better communication and better customer service comes from leveraging previous work product as well. Is that fair to say? Right? I mean, when you have to create a whole new motion from scratch, you're pretty much guaranteed it's going to be an unprofitable thing, right? So leveraging those documents over and over again would be really helpful. Okay. I'm going to leave you with these three numbers. When we took those 88%, right, of client satisfaction, and we gave all of these folks an integrated piece of software that everything works together. Their billing works together, their document management works together, their client relationship software works together. Everything in one space. Even their legal calendaring is done automatically based off of the rules in one space. This is what happened. Our customers saw a 12% increase with a very high client satisfaction, 71% increase in referrals by existing clients. You're faster, you're more efficient. Your bills are probably a little lower, but you're seeing more clients because you're getting more referrals. And our customers saw a 9% annual increase in their average billings. Most people would sign up for a 2% increase, you know? So, or even just an increase. That would be great. That means you're growing. So, the one thing I'd like to ask you to think about yourself and think about your firm and ask yourself, where is my ripple in my workflow? Where is there that bump? Is it in my trial prep? Is it in my intake process? Is it in my document management process? Is it in my billing process? Is it a client demand issue? Is it a technology issue? Or is it a business issue? Identify one of those three buckets and attack it, right? Because I'm telling you, 50% of your colleagues are not. And that's your opportunity to grow your business and get that 6% increase year over year. So, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt. And so we are going to move to Yuri, who's going to, we've been talking about sort of all building on each other.
Thank you for sticking around here. And if you don't hear me way in the back, just let me know. I'll yell at you. I think I'm a natural progression, as it turns out, in all events. Speaking after you, but you pointed out a very interesting fact, Matt, that 89% of the people with administrative inefficiencies don't do anything about it. That's a very interesting statistic, and it makes me wonder why. Why in our market have we not seen the adoption of automation technologies? And so let's talk a little bit about that. First, why I'm here standing in front of you speaking about this topic. I'm an attorney, I'm an entrepreneur, and when I started out my practice with my team, we decided to focus specifically on automation, to lower our overhead, to impress and better satisfy our clients. And it really worked. And the statistics you show, increase in annual billings, client referrals, client satisfaction, they're a fact. And I think the more we go around talking about it and sharing, the more people will begin to adopt automation technology. And so I'd like to know a little bit about you, the crowd here, so I understand who I'm talking about. Is anyone here experienced with legal administration, administrative tasks in the practice of law? It looks like there's a few of us here. Well, it's difficult, tedious for everybody involved. Let's just talk about some of the problems. It's time consuming. Typically you don't bill for it unless you're old school. It's tedious and error prone. Very particular personality types have to catch errors, typos, mistakes. It's human error prone task. And it becomes difficult for both the firm and the client involved. So this is the problem that we're going to talk a little bit about today. And there's a lot of facets to it. In particular, legal administration, when you break it down, it can be categorized in the following 4 phases. You engage your clients, you get the data you need to begin working on your clients, you provide the services, and you finalize the work, you finish it off. And so let's talk about what each of those involves for the law firm. When you engage, you have to prepare an engagement letter, get it reviewed by the attorney, send it off for signature, follow up, get it signed, save a copy. When you intake data, you have to ask your clients to either go into this website or fill in this form, get that data back, what do you have to do with it? Do you have to populate a CRM or your project management, or is it just going to sit as a document in your document storage? Then when you provide, let's say, a contract, you got to get it reviewed and approved. When you're done with the process, you have to get it signed. Various other administrative practices, there's a lot of forms that go in and say there's a patent filing. Well, every inventor in a patent filing will have to sign 4 different forms. Those are forms you have to prepare, get reviewed and approved, signed, aggregate. That's a pretty time-intensive procedure. Let's talk about what we're asking our clients to do. And I'm terrible, apparently, at slide presentations. So, when the first thing you ask your client to do is engage my firm, are you asking them to print this attachment, sign it, scan it in, and email it back? Is that the first impression you're leaving your clients with? Here, print, sign, scan, email it back to me. And do that right away. Before you do that, I'm not starting. Because I can't, legally, sorry. You have to find a printer, find a scanner, and email it to me. Okay, once you're done with that, great. Now here's some forms I need to fill out. I need to know what I'm filing a trademark on. I need to know what I'm going to do a patent on. So fill in this questionnaire. How are they going to do that? Even if you have an online form for them to do it in, half of the ones provided don't have a save feature. If they lose their window, they lose all their data. It's very difficult for them. Then again, when you ask them to finalize and sign a document again, print, sign, scan, it's a pain for them as well. And let's get to the, I'm just gonna kind of, these are all the elements involved. When you're doing legal administration, you got to get your documents from the document storage. You want to send a link to the client. It's a special setting. You communicate with them through email, phone, sending them attachments, mail. You might have 3 different platforms, one for your CRM, one for your practice management, one for your e-signature tool, all in different places. Clients are getting emails from different providers if you are tech savvy. And you're supposed to maintain 5 different platforms. It's not easy for anybody involved. And so, what I like about this, why it's very ripe for progress in our field, is because everything in client administration and legal administration, almost everything, is systematic and repetitive. It involves the same steps 95% of the time, through the same process. And every client, even though their case is different, the administration around that case is the same. So that, to me, means we can get robots to do this, or supplement what we do. We can build automations that does this for us. So I would say that 90%, this is a statistic that I have from personal experience, but over 90% of client interaction, client administration, happens over email. It happens over an electronic medium. Over 90% of it is systematic and repetitive. These factors make it really easy to automate. And so, let's talk about some of the automations that occur in the space. For engaging a client, you could have automated engagement letter builders. Pre-populate your templates, just fill in a few fields, check a few boxes, engagement letters generated. You can send it off to them to e-sign from their mobile phone. For intake, you can get systems where the client fills in information, and that information populates into your templates, into your CRM, into your practice management software dynamically. And the clients are guided through a nice interface. They can save and come back to it later. When you're asking for multiple parties to review a document, there's a document review and approval process, and that's what we'll talk about here. That could be automated. Document routing could be automated. Everything could be tracked, logged, saved for e-discovery as well. Now when you finalize, and let's say there are multiple signers who need to sign a document, automations save you 10 steps per sign. It saves you, on average, in the patent space where I work, it's about 30 minutes worth of form preparation per inventor can be brought down to 3 minutes for the entire application. And all can be done through a centralized server, secure. We're not going to talk too much about that because I want to focus on the advantages. You're going to see less errors with the computation, less steps you have to perform with the automations. You're going to have a better organizational system, a better document process, with faster turnaround times. Your clients are going to respond faster, and overall, they're going to be happier. One use case example, the most frequent of them all, I would say, is the document review, approval, and signature process. And I'm going to ask a few hypothetical questions, and maybe we get interactive answers. So, question number 1, guys. Do you ensure that the document you sent off for signature was not modified when it was signed? Sometimes. What? So it's a 23-page document. You're going to go through every page, make sure you're not. It's a PDF. You'll never know. E-signature technology out there, and automation technology, is going to make sure that that document is tamper evident, that it's locked, can't be modified, and centralized. It's hosted in a centralized location, such that every access to the document is tracked. You capture the IP address of the person, the time, the date, and their actions on the system. Do you verify the signer's identity? You ask somebody to print, sign, and scan something remotely, they did that, sent it back to you. You never know who signed it. You have no way, really. Electronic signature technology has ID verification, PIN code access techniques. Knowledge-based authentication can be used, meaning they ask, what is the last 4 digits of your social security? I mean, this knowledge-based authentication technology, it's so advanced, it remembers where I lived 18 years ago. Somehow, it says, did you live in any one of these addresses? Wow, that was my old address. Familiar with that. Technology solves that answer, that question. Why are 89% of people who have this problem, why aren't they doing anything about it? It's mind-blowing. All right, the multiple signers. One document could have 4 parties who need to sign that document. And when they're all remotely located from each other, we send them all out to sign. Each one of them prints the signature sheet, signs it, and sends it back. And what happens now is you have 4 versions of the document, each signed by one party. How are you going to aggregate that? How are you going to cross-check for consistencies? And what about all the steps involved in enforcing a sequential signer policy, where you wait for the first person to sign, then you send it to the second person, third person, fourth. Do you know how many follow-ups go in to making sure one person gets a document signed? How much time those follow-ups take? 15 minutes per signer of just follow-up time. Your clients are going to love it, and you know what? They're making the switch to automation. When you work with businesses, they're beginning to expect that you have them e-sign something rather than wet sign something. They're beginning to expect that your file share isn't a Dropbox link. They have certain expectations that we can all meet in our profession. And the solutions are out there. Well, I'm going to leave it here. We're not going to do any demonstration of automation, but thank you for your time.
That's great. I'm going to do a 5-minute demo talk. A Darwin talk. So I'm just going to talk I'm going to try to do it in 3 minutes. Just a little bit because everybody sort of mentioned the same thing. You know, I think at the end Yuri's saying, like, why aren't people doing this? And Matt's saying, why aren't people doing it? And I think it's because lawyers still believe that law firms are not businesses. That people will come to you and they will hear about your reputation and they will show up. But that's going to die. I don't believe that because I have a law degree but not a practicing lawyer, I don't believe lawyers will be replaced by robots because robots don't have empathy, robots don't have professional judgment. So you might be able to machine learn it in one day. I don't think I'll be around for that. But as Yuri mentioned, clients are demanding it. I recently engaged a lawyer to do some work for me. She sent me an engagement letter, and not to email it back to her, but to write a check and put it in an envelope and send it. And it was like, this is insane. So the one thing I'm going to tell you though is please don't run out and buy the technology. So what you need to do is figure out what your pain points are. And this is what people have said. Cash is king. Your clients bring the cash. If your clients are demanding technology, then you better figure out what it is that you need. So we've talked about it a lot today. This is my sort of thesis for 2017. I'm actually going to Birmingham tomorrow, and I'm speaking at a symposium where I'm talking about the fact we don't need legal technology. We just need technology for legal. And so it really gets into this idea that time is finite, technology is not. There's this long list of things that are technology, but unless they're really, really easy to use, and unless they, and I want to take it past, and this is not my original idea, take it past integration into interoperability. People have to build systems, like Yuri was talking about, it's got to be end-to-end, because otherwise, like, I get so frustrated when I have to go onto one system, oh, and then I gotta go check this, and I gotta go over there to do that. And that's just to run my regular day job. So you need to be curious as lawyers. I think, you wanna be cautious because that's what you learn. But being curious and being open to change, that's how we're gonna move the needle on the 98%. Most of these have been mentioned. But I wanna say that you as lawyers need to demand that the switching of the data is done for you, and you also need to demand a free trial, or at least a free demo, where it makes sense. Like obviously you're not going to demand a free trial of a practice management system for your entire firm, because that would be a little bit crazy, because there'd be all of the switching, but, and Natalie's sort of making a face, so maybe that exists, people can follow up afterwards. Oops. So really, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't get your act together, figure out what you're doing, and move down this path, you are going to be on Matt's graph where you're dropping off the other side. And big proponent of linking. When you are pulling data out to analyze and measure your return on investment, or measure your other metrics, key performance indicators, very important. Make sure that you're linking as much as possible, because I'm not a recovering lawyer, but a recovering accountant, and you don't want to know how many hours go into trying to balance things, because people are taking data from one place and re-inputting it. It's the same thing for your firms for accountants. And I have not done it in 3 minutes, but I will leave you with, it is not necessarily, I'm not disagreeing with Yuri, but it's not a sort of start at one place and end. It's a continuous improvement, your practice starts with a client. At the end, you need to figure out what that client's experience was, because that's what's going to drive your new client. So it's all a big circle. So thank you all for coming and listening. And I want to ask Jennifer to come up and sort of close, and then if people want to ask questions more informally, please visit the companies and please eat the food.
So I want to thank everybody so much for being here. This is, so myself and Kimberly and Yuri and Mikhail are launching with this event our Atlanta Legal Technology and Innovation Meetups for the year. So we plan to meet monthly. We have actually the next 2 tentatively planned already. And so I would encourage all of you, how many of you have already signed up for the meetup group or found out about this in the meetup group? Okay, so those of you who haven't, go to our meetup group. Find us online. It's the Atlanta Legal Technology and Innovation Group. And sign up for those meetups. You'll find out when we're meeting. We'll send out reminders. You can get, all the details there. We're really excited about moving this group forward. We've already got a good number of members in that group and some great ideas. So thanks for being here. Like you said, any questions, move them to the back of the room and eat the food. All right. Good night.